I brought forward the supplemental item because I noted that my colleague from Precinct 1 brought forward an item on his item 2. But since he has chosen to not go forward with that, there's no need for me to bring out item 1, except for we each have a duty and a responsibility to our communities to make sure that we are allowing everyone the opportunity to participate. And I would point out that those who brought the agenda item for today need to also follow that within your own appointments. And so that's why I brought that item forward today, so that, as we would note last week, those that would have fulfilled the criteria that you brought for today's discussion weren't the one that brought the item forward. But I'm going to withdraw further discussion of that since you have not brought yours.
Yeah, no.
Unless you want to.
Oh, yeah. No,
if you want to launch into that,
yeah.
then
No.
I have a follow-up to that.
I think we should.
Okay. You want to go back?
Did you want to? On your item? Anything?
I think your item was actually first, if you want to talk about it.
So, Judge, I have a long history on advocating for minority and women-owned businesses. The city of Houston adopted a program, I think, in 1984 or 1985 to set aside goals, not a quota, but goals for minority and women-owned businesses to participate in procurement activities. The state of Texas adopted a program in about 1991, 1993. There was a major Supreme Court case, the Croson case. It came out of Richmond, Virginia in about 1989 that requires that if a governmental entity wants to have a minority women's business enterprise program, you have to do something called a disparity study. Now that's akin to going back and reconstructing your tax returns like you have a tax audit. It's a very expensive proposition. The state of Texas did one. I think it cost $1 million in 1991 to go and do it. Texas was the first major state in the country to do one. A number of governmental entities in the state of Texas used that disparity study so they could do minority business enterprise ordinances, including the one in the city of Houston, which probably would have gotten struck down in court if they didn't do their own disparity study and they didn't want to pay for one. So they piggybacked off of the city's disparity program. I think the first county in Texas to do one was probably Travis County. Today, Travis County has one. Dallas County has a program. Baird County has a very robust small business program. I think Nueces, probably El Paso, a number of counties in the state have. Most cities in the state have one. I'm told that my predecessor, El Franco Lee, put an item on the agenda in about 2005 to do a small business program. There was some concerns by the court. It went to the legal department. I've seen a memo that I think the county attorney at the time was Mr. Stafford, reviewed, and he came back with a program that was somewhat milder than the small business program that he wanted to do. And then there was never a vote on it. Obviously, the rules prohibit me from talking to members of the court, at least two members of the court, in private about it. But I have talked to Senator Garcia, who told me it was her understanding when she was here that they were close to thinking they would have 3 votes to do a program. When those votes vanished, they just decided not to move forward. So last week, when a number of people came in to speak about the need for the county to adopt an overall policy, not Commissioner Cagle just with regard to professional services, be it legal fees, be it accounting fees, be it engineers or architects, but everything that Harris County spends, or everything that we control. When I heard them speak, and I did a quick on the back of a piece of paper tablet, I think that our governing board controls a little under $5 billion. If you count flood control, hospital district, the county itself, everything that we pretty much have control over, it comes a little under $5 billion. I don't know if each of those other entities, Harris Health, Sports Corporation Board, I don't know what policies they have. I was told when I got here that Commissioner Lee was very sensitive to this issue as well. And so I asked, what are the numbers? I was told we don't keep numbers if it's money that we control, that we generate for subcontractors. We do keep it for primes. I'm told that over at the city, I think at the state, I'm not sure, I haven't looked at the data, it's all public, it's online. But at the state level, most of our minority and women-owned businesses probably make a good bit of their revenue off of the subcontractor work, because many of them are not at the level where they can be primes. Under the state's program, there are graduation standards. So this is a program designed to give people a lift up, to help them level the playing field, but to keep it from being considered a quota program for life. They do have graduation standards. I'm told at the county level, there may be some firms that we count that may not be certified with the state, with the Houston Minority Business Development Council, or with whatever the city of Houston's entity is, because they may have graduated. Now, last court meeting when we were discussing this, you were kind enough to lean over to me and say, don't cross the line because there's no item on the agenda. And so I stated then that I would put an item on the agenda, not for action, because to be honest with you, I don't have a plan. When I was on the state level, what I did was simply see an opportunity to amend something to require the state of Texas to do a, quote, disparity study. I was asked how much it would cost. I had no idea. In 1991, the comptroller at that time, John Sharp, made some calls and said, it may cost up to $1 million. So we put in a dollar amount of not above $1 million. And then when that little amendment stayed on the bill through the process, someone suggested you probably ought to put an amendment in another bill to say if a disparity is found, there may not be one, but if a disparity is found, the State General Services Commission ought to promulgate rules and regulations that would pass a legal challenge to remedy any disparities if any are found. So we did that. This was like a 2-year process. The governor at that time was Ann Richards. She pretty much controlled the General Services Commission. They did promulgate rules and regulations. They were adopted. When Governor Bush was elected, he made a modest change, if my memory serves me correct. I think his administration added the graduation standards. On the state level, both Democrats and Republicans, people to the far left, to the far right, have supported the program. During the presidential race, issues came up around it. It's not a quota program. It's still in place. Over time, various changes were made so that veterans would be able to participate. And it is, in my judgment, considered a model for the rest of the country. Here in Harris County, we are about to hopefully get an unprecedented amount of federal money. It may not be enough, but it will be substantial. I am assuming that under current law, when there are strings attached to federal money that require that you make a good faith effort to meet a goal for minority and women-owned businesses, we do it. Or if not, at some point, somebody would challenge us, and then somebody would probably file one of those clawback letters to challenge how we are spending the money. And I assume going forward with this much money, that's going to happen again. So after people came and spoke last week, I know there's some on the agenda for this week, I would encourage my colleagues for us to look at doing a disparity study. We could do our own. We could team up with some governmental entity to save money to do one, because as much as we want to do to make sure we are fair and we are even-handed, we as the 5 people on this board don't really look at or control every contract or spending opportunity that comes along. And I think if it's transparent, if it's a policy, if it's thought out, if it's legal, if it's vetted, if we look at pluses and minuses of other people around the state, counties in particular who've adopted programs, to see if they learned things, if it helped encourage more small business people, particularly women and those of color, to go in business, I think we learned from that. So the item that I put on the agenda was not to have specific action, but it was to have this discussion. Now, I have looked at the numbers on what all of us do, and since I have been here, I have not awarded as many contracts as would have been awarded for my precinct, because I took about a year to review everything we wanted to do to decide whether or not to do it. But just based on the preliminary look I have seen from the ones we control, if we get a call from a department, I guess toll road authority, and say you got 4 or 5 folks, who do you suggest? Our numbers are about the same in terms of what we control. But it's not just professional services. It's construction. It may be vending opportunities in terms of food services, a host of things that I think we ought to encourage more of our minority and women-owned businesses to do. And with that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions and hopefully find some collaboration and see if we in what will soon be the 3rd largest county in the country can adopt some policy that will be here long after the 5 of us on the governing board of this county.
Do you want to go? You want me to say something?
The book of Ecclesiastes says that in many words there's often vanity. And I believe that this is a very, very important issue, and it is incumbent upon each commissioner to make sure that in our appointments that we are following equity and justice in our decisions. I have a few questions of the county engineer. Understanding that there have been very few appointments until the last week or two by Commissioner Ellis, how does Harris County stack up to the city of Houston, which has a program like this, in terms of our prime appointments?
Commissioner, as of last night, we finally received the City of Houston's information. They keep their scores different than us. They grade subcontractors and concentrate on subcontractors, whereas what we concentrate on is primes. Now, as of last court, through here, 33% of our prime contractors met MWBE category, either on the state list or the City of Houston list, because depending, if someone doesn't do business with the City of Houston, they're not going to go get registered with the City of Houston. They may do this business with us in the state. So we looked at both lists, and we're at 33% for primes. For subs, we're looking at about 31%, but that's just from January to now, and we're not very far in the year.
And how is the city of Houston doing with its formal legalized program?
They're doing substantially more on subcontracts, and it looks like they're doing less on primes. One of the things we're trying to go through is they do everything based on dollar value, and we finally got the numbers, because the dollar value comes in after you assign the consultant. You don't really know the dollar value of that contract till you negotiate the scope, determine what it is, and negotiate the contract. So we've always looked at what the prime is, and then until this recently, we weren't even keeping track of the subs. We knew who they were, but they were in the documents, not actually on a spreadsheet. So we have that now. But overall, the city of Houston reports that their primes are about 4.9%. But we're not sure if that's just in professional services or overall. That's why they've sent us a data dump for us to review.
So 33% is more than 4.9%.
If their 4.9 is representative of professional services, and from their document, I can't tell, we're going through it, it's substantially more. Now, they do tell me they concentrate on sub-consultants on their MWBE program. We don't have a program, and we always look at primes because, quite frankly, that's what everybody wants to be, is a prime consultant for the county.
And so we are doing 33% on the primes, which are the big jobs, and then we are 31% on our subs, which means that we're actually doing a pretty good job.
I think so.
Okay. And that is the responsibility of each commissioner sitting at this table in terms of assisting your office in the selection of those contractors within our precincts.
Yes.
My supplemental item was to draw forward to today the recommendation to negotiate those items that were on March 27th. Now, I noticed that on today's agenda that it looks like we have a pretty equitable allocation of work in the precinct, amongst the precincts. But on the last agenda, one of our courts sort of may have not held up that standard as much. And in fact, of the 8 appointments that were under that particular commissioner's control, only one would have been in the category of the MWDV or of a HUB type vendor program. Am I correct? Out of items 2 through 9.
Yes, sir, although item 9 was not, that was actually, although it's county, it's
That was
in
countywide.
precinct 1, it's in fact for the hospital district, and that was one of our recommendations.
All right, and to be clear, item 10, which was out of precinct 2, was an HUB site. Item 11, which was precinct 3, was an MBE. And item 12, which is out of precinct 4, was an MBE as well.
Yes, sir.
I brought that forward because we could at this time, actually, since there's not been, has there been any agreement that's actually been reached on those 7 items there that did not qualify out of the last agenda? Have we reached an agreement on any of those that we were supposed to negotiate?
No, the only item that has been back for a contract is actually one of the other items, number 11.
And so we could then substitute another qualifying engineering firm for any of those 7 items. Is that correct?
That would be my understanding, yes. Thank you.
Before I make any additional motions, I will sit back for a minute and hear what my colleagues may or may not have to say, if anything. But I think that it's important that in our deeds, as well as in our words, that we practice what we preach.
Commissioner Cagle, I'm going to take this a slightly different direction. We're talking about architecture, engineering type services.
Yes.
On things like construction, vending, those are actually on a bid basis, are they not?
Yes, sir.
I remember, Commissioner Raddick, you and I may have been the only ones here, but I do remember a fairly lengthy discussion a few years ago when Commissioner Lee was here to make sure that our procurement process reached out and made sure that we were advising people. And what have we done in that regard? to make sure that firms that would otherwise be MWBE firms know to bid on things?
We've actually added, first of all, we actually go out and meet monthly with different chambers. We go out to the, meet the buyer forums. We do those every month. My buyers go out and do those extra presentations to inform folks how to do business with the county. So we do those throughout the year. We also have, each one of my staff is required to include small and minority businesses on our bid list, to include those, to notify those. But again, it's on we go out and determine which vendors we add to that bid list. So we are reaching out to those vendors to include those on our bid list and help them to sign up on our website for those specific commodities. So those are taking place throughout the year, Judge, as we go through each bid process.
And have you had any groups come to you to complain? And if so, have we accommodated their complaints?
Well, when groups come to us and ask us to go speak or inform them, we'll meet their needs. We'll go out to their specific group, or we'll reach out to them and say, if we haven't met with you, we'll be glad to go speak at your events, and we've actually fulfilled their needs. Yes, sir.
I guess my point, Commissioners, is that sometimes, I know it comes as a shock to people, sometimes governmental bodies do what's right without being forced to do what's right. And I agree that we should be judged on what we do, not on what we say. And so, I'm totally open to any idea of improvement. But I know during my just over a decade here, it's been real clear that we want everybody in this county to be a participant in county business. And I think as the statistics show, without having a program, we've done better than the city. And that's not a knock on the city. But I would urge everybody to sort of take a deep breath and step back, and let's all look at what we're doing and seeing if there's a way to improve it. And if a few months from now, Commissioner Ellis, we've uncovered some problems, or maybe people will have come and told us there are problems, then let's address it. But I think we're actually doing a pretty good job right now.
Judge, I would, unless there's another comment.
Real quick, Commissioner. I just want to say that our purchasing agent, in my experience, has gone out of his way to reach out. I know at least on more than one occasion I've asked him to come speak to a chamber, namely the Houston Hispanic Chamber, and he's been more than willing to do so. So Dwight, I really appreciate your willingness to reach out and be as inclusive as possible to give everybody a chance to work with the county. And I think you're doing a fantastic job, and you express your commitment to do even more. Right. And so I appreciate that. Thank you.
So my comment is in no way a reflection on the purchasing office.
Right.
But I think we'd be hard pressed to say that our numbers of what we do is better than what the city does, or for that matter, what the state does, knowing the state is much larger when we don't collect the numbers. So when I came and I asked, well, hey, what are the numbers? And I was told, that's a good question, but we don't have them. So jokingly, I made the comment, since it's all in the media, the Russians know. I mean, how could, in this age of transparency, how could you not know? And naively, I said, well, could we just go see who we gave contracts to over the last couple of years, and then just go pull the city list of certified vendors, or the state list, or the Houston minority contractors, and juxtapose them, which was naive because that's thousands. So then I went about the business of nosing around to see what other counties do instead of what other cities do. And I ran into someone in Bexar County who used to work used to work for me. She's over there, small business program, which is pretty robust. Renee Watson.
Commissioner Ellis, excuse me for interrupting, but with all due respect, maybe you ought to talk to the people at Harris County first.
Well, I did, and just because we don't keep the numbers,
But we just heard the numbers.
no. We've heard the
Blunt,
numbers for a certain area of professional services. But there's a company called BG2 now, where you just attach their computer program to our database, which is public information, and you do a run. So we have done that, and we're collating the data with the budget office to make sure they don't have, we must have thousands of purchases. But the preliminary run that they did made our overall purchasing numbers for minority and women-owned businesses look pretty low. And I didn't release those because it may not be accurate. So the budget office is still going through it. As an example, how could we not collect the information on subs when that is probably where the minority and women-owned businesses really can make money? Now, you know, I got a little experience in this because Commissioner Lee benefited from the program the city put in place and the state put in place, so that when I was with the city doing business with other states and other cities, and then when I left the city, went to the state, and I was doing business with the city. So I'm just saying, there's information.
You've done a lot of business with lots of governmental
I
agencies.
have. And I know how these minority women business enterprise programs have leveled the playing field and remove a lot of vestiges from our past collectively that kept people like me and El Franco Lee out. And with all due respect, you don't make a decision by going to pick who's on the agenda one day. That's why you put a program in place. If our numbers are so good, I would assume there would be no reluctance to do a disparity study, to put a program in place, and nothing would change. If we're already doing a great job, we keep doing a great job. I mean, it's not, I'm not advocating something that all around the country, around the state, other county commissioners who are sensitive to these issues, as we are in our speeches, have put in place. And I don't think you'll find any of our peers who will say they got quota programs, or the sky has fallen, or the quality of the work has gone down.
Judge, I worked with El Franco Lee for approximately 27 years. You worked with him for 8.
Plus legislature.
Huh?
Plus time in the
Well,
legislature.
plus that. Commissioner Mormon, about 5 years. Mr. Cagle, about 4. I can say to you that when he discussed things that were important to him, and he thought were important to the county, I think we all listened to him. And I can say this, is that he was a pretty strong-willed individual. Because of El Franco, we ended up with the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. We ended up with the Children's Assessment Center. And he did incredible things, the Street Olympics, which we, I think, all helped participate in. And you know what? You got a budget. You want to do a study, write a check and do your study. Okay, you criticize us for defending this county on this bail bond thing. You damn near belittle the county attorney's office the way you talk to them, but that's your business. But you know, it reaches a point that if you strongly believe in something, put your money where your mouth is. You don't have a problem in the world denying us money that we think is necessary to defend our criminal justice system, because we want a fair one. We want it fair to the law-abiding citizens as well as to the criminals. So you do what you want to do, put it on the agenda, and let's vote and spend as much money as you want on the study.
I appreciate that, Dean, and to be honest with you, a disparity study will cost, if the county were to partner with the city, I'm told, this is just a guess, which doesn't mean you have a program, that means you go see if you have a disparity. It probably costs about $650,000. And
Sure.
I would hope that some of my colleagues on Commissioner's Court, out of their budgets, would be willing to put some money up as well, so it can be done and we can look at it. But let me tell you, and if not, I would challenge the minority and women's business community to put up some of the money as well. But Precinct 1 would be more than happy to foot at least 1/4 of that $600,000.
This is something you strongly believe in. Okay, you strongly believe in it. Put your money out there and do it.
Well, look, I agree.
You have
And
money in your budget to
I got
do
you.
it.
I may well do that, but I want to give you the opportunity as well. And so I will put an item on the agenda.
I'll give you what I'll do. I'll
And you,
vote.
and you may give me some.
No, I'll vote to allow you to spend your money.
Okay.
Okay?
Well,
I'll actually do you that favor.
At least that means I'll get a second. And maybe since I can't talk about it in private, when it comes up, I may get some other money. Or the business community may put something as well.
fine.
But let me say this on the other issue while we at it. With all due respect and humility, we don't have a criminal justice system that is fair, and we don't have one that is equal. And no matter how many feelings it hurts, I'm going to be on the right side of history on that issue.
And I
And
appreciate
if I lose, I'll go down fighting, but I'm going to sleep as good at night as you do.
Well, you know, I think Dr. May's here right now, but let me just say this to you. You'll have, you know, you talked about the good feeling or whatever you just said. What was it? You remember what you just said?
I don't remember how I said it,
Okay,
but,
but
let me
let
try
me-
to rephrase it for you,
let-
Dean. I'll
By
take
the way,
my record.
dean is a term used in the Senate. It's
Yeah.
really not used in the
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Commissioner's
just
Court.
repeating what I hear here.
No, you
from
started.
time to time. But Commissioner, I'll put my record on going up against the system, even getting people off death row that this county has put there against anybody on this court, anybody in the country.
Well, let me just tell you, so far, and we can get some figures on this, so far, your plan, what it has done, is created bodily injury to citizens of this county. Bodily injury. You got them out, they went out, they abused their spouses, abused other people. So I can tell you this, you may feel you have come up with a fair system, but your system of what you've done by recruiting lawyers to sue this county, what you have done, there are people that have been hospitalized, injured, and even killed under your program.
Well,
Okay.
I hope the media will take those comments and go look at those cases and
hope they
see
do,
whether those
believe
are
me.
people who got out on money bail
Let
or
me,
people who got out from the court.
let me get us back to the agenda item. I believe Commissioner Cagle, your point was, you kind of danced around, but
The point is that we have an agenda item
from last time.
from last time of 3/27/18, which does not seem to reflect the overall approach that we have taken, which is the 33% and the 31% involvement. I'll go ahead and make a motion that on item 4 of last agenda, that we substitute the authorization to negotiate to TSC, David Chang and Terry Chang and David Kermany, that we substitute for item 5, Bobby Singh with Asana, and then item 6, that we substitute Giddy Zarenkelk with Zarenkelk Engineering, which are 3 entities that would qualify underneath the MWDB programs, and I would make a motion that we do that substitution.
I'd like to add to that motion.
Now, let's be clear. We danced around this, but Commissioner Ellis says these are all your items from last court.
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't have a single minority or woman business enterprise on your list that you've suggested to this court. Is that correct?
I have one,
One out
and
of,
I would also like to ask, how many do I have today? And how many did I have the week before? But hey, be that as it may, I'll make a substitute motion that those same 3 firms be put into place of any majority-owned firm that any member of the court recommends for today or any future court meeting.
Well, someone has to second my motion first. Are you seconding my motion?
Will you second mine?
I'm not quite sure I understand what yours is. I'm not quite sure I understand your
Mine is-
amendment.
Is there a second for Commissioner Cagle's motion?
I think your point is clearly made, that you need to practice what you preach. I don't know that we need to implement that motion, so I won't second it, but
In the realm
I'd
of
vote for it.
demagoguery, that might be a little Cleonish.
But I understand, Commissioner Cagle, you've made your
Yeah.
point. Commissioner Ellis, you've received his point.
Yeah, I got it. I do want to say, Commissioner, I got
We
tremendous.
still got executive session to go in here.
I
I'm
do
just
want
reminding
to
people.
say, while we're in the realm of demagoguery, making a point, the overall number for every commissioner on this court, we went and pulled them, it's about the same. I mean, they're really pretty high on the professional services we granted.
Are they?
Yeah. So do you
So
know
those
what they
numbers are available, Commissioner Ellis?
Yeah, we
I thought they weren't available.
Oh, no. I'm talking about for the last year on primes. What's not available, Judge, is what happens with subs. And what I'm telling you from my experience of being in business for about 28 to 35 years with a minority-owned business, usually that is where the minority firms make, and women-owned firms make their business. There are just not that many who can be a prime. And that's why I'm sincerely suggesting we do the disparity study. If there's nothing there, they go back, I think the law requires about 3 to 5 years. And then if there's nothing there to remedy, you don't put anything in place. But you could go and take what I have or what other folks have for the day, 2 weeks prior to the last meeting, and it goes up and down. So it's really not an attempt to try to one-up someone, Jack, Commissioner. The real issue is, are you better off with an overall policy? That's why the federal government did it.
All right.
That's why the state did it. That's why the cities did it.
Judge, I just want to say this very quickly. When it really boils down to it, Commissioners Court basically approves contracts for the county engineer, for flood control, okay, toll road. As far as actually us hiring people directly, we basically hire employees, okay? We follow your recommendations in purchasing. You figure out, basically, we aren't the ones who figure out who actually are going to get the contract and do the work. We may make recommendations for you, for Treese, for Poppy to look at. But in fact, Harris County Commissioners Court is not really going out, seeking these people out, hiring these people. Y'all put things out for competitive bid. You do competitive bidding, correct?
On some items, yes.
Oh, yeah, but a whole lot of items, major items. So at any rate, it's more to it than, we are very, very fair and I think balanced and use the bidding laws of the state of Texas, which you passed.
So what the state of Texas will permit us
Okay.
to do a disparity study, to have
Yeah.
MWB program. If
I
it
will
works
listen.
that way, what's the fear?
No,
We're going to have to deal with federal
agenda.
money.